We need to eat the baby.
I have no respect for women who voted for Trump. Okay, I think so poorly of them, and the reason why.
Are you kidding me? Judge rules against merit-based immigration. Should immigrants be able to provide for themselves? Not if Democrats succeed. By Arnold Alhart from the patriotpost.us. U.S. border. Lots of free stuff ahead. Healthcare, education, housing, food, contraception, abortion, phones, cash, dental service. They should have put, get your Obama phone. So they get all that, huh? Well, what about the citizens? Like, I don't know. Remember Obamacare? Remember the act that was passed on Christmas Eve without a single Republican vote? Remember when Nancy Pelosi famously asserted Democrats had to pass it so Americans can find out what's in it? Remember what Americans found is that despite the former president's promise that one could keep one's health insurance if one liked it, more accurately known as the 2013 Lie of the Year, one would be required to purchase health insurance or face a fairly substantial fine for failing to do so. Yes, I remember paying fines. How times have changed, courtesy of U.S. District Judge Michael Simon, an Obama appointee. On November 2nd, in Portland, Oregon, Simon issued a temporary restraining order blocking a Trump administration initiative that requires immigrants to prove they will have health insurance or can pay for medical care before they can get visas aimed at giving them permanent legal status. Facing a likely risk of being separated from their family members and a delay in obtaining a visa to which family members would otherwise be entitled to irreparable harm, Simon wrote. Simon, you're an idiot. Irreparable harm for whom? Trump invoked executive authority last month with regard to those requirements as part of the administration's efforts to transition to a merit-based immigration system, as in one that would not further harm Americans. The United States has a long history of welcoming immigrants who have come lawfully in search of brighter futures. We must continue that tradition while also addressing the challenges facing our healthcare system, including protecting both it and the American taxpayer from the burdens of uncompensated care, Trump stated in the proclamation. Continuing to allow entry into the United States of certain immigrants who lack health insurance or demonstrate the ability to pay for healthcare would be detrimental to these interests. In other words, those seeking permanent residence shouldn't have immediate access to Americans' welfare state. In a nation burdened by $23 trillion of national debt, driven in large part by welfare state mandates such as requirement, would seem to be no-brainer. The administration made that clear when it noted that subsidized healthcare plans still available on Obamacare exchanges would not qualify as insurance. A study by the nonpartisan Migration Policy Institute reveals why only 57% of U.S. immigrants had private health insurance in 2017, and America still welcomes 1.1 million legal immigrants to our nation on an annual basis. It should be further explained that this order was not issued ex post facto. It would have applied to immigrants living abroad, not those already here. Moreover, refugees, asylum seekers, and children would have remained unaffected. None of it mattered to Judge Simon. The temporary restraining order blocks the policy's implementation for 28 days, and another hearing on the matter is scheduled for November 22nd. So basically, he is just stalling and going to stall as long as he can. Unsurprisingly, the move was celebrated by those who apparently believe self-sufficiency should not be an integral part of immigration reform. Countless thousands across the country can breathe a sigh of relief today because the court recognized the urgent and irreparable harm that would have been inflicted without the hold. Jesse Bless, Director of Federal Litigation at the American Immigration Lawyers Association, said in a statement, "Well, Jess Bless, you're an idiot." Irreparable harm, my ass. Justice Action Center senior attorney Esther Sung who litigated and brought case by 7 U.S. citizens and a nonprofit organization, echoed those sentiments. We're very grateful that the court recognized the need to block the healthcare ban immediately, she stated. The ban would separate families and cut 2/3 of green card-based immigration starting tonight, were the ban not stopped. That 2 out of 3 immigrants seeking green cards can't afford their own health insurance is a testament to the agenda of those who believe Americans should abiding the standards of immigration instead of immigrants abiding the standards of America. Oh, excuse me? No. No. How is it that there are so many Americans that can't even afford their own health care, and yet you want to give it to people that aren't even citizens? And no, no one should believe that America should be abiding by the standards of immigrants. The immigrants need to abide by the standards of America, period. Like, there's nothing else to say. That's it. Unsurprisingly, Simon is only the latest Obama-appointed federal jurist on a self-aggrandizing mission to undermine the administration's efforts to end the nation's immigration crisis. Yeah, you know what sucks? All these judges are activists now. And it's just left versus right, and it pisses me off. When it comes to judges should not have any political agenda. They need just follow the damn law and the Constitution. They need to come up with the law that a judge that is an advocate needs to be removed from the bench immediately. Okay. On a single day, last September 27th, 3 Obama-appointed judges also did their best to thwart the administration's efforts. In California, Judge Dolly G. of the Federal District Court in Los Angeles issued a preliminary rule banning the administration's attempt to detain migrant families for longer than 20 days. U.S. District Court Judge Andre Birate Jr. issued a permanent injunction blocking immigration and custom enforcement from relying solely on the databases when issuing detainers. And Judge Kentai Brown Jackson of the U.S. District Court for District of Columbia issued a nationwide preliminary injunction barring the administration from using a fast-track deportation process aimed at illegals who illegally entered the nation in the last 2 years. You know what sucks, man? When all you're trying to do is clean the country of illegal immigration so that they come in legally. And oh, I forgot what the fuck I was saying. But, oh yeah, no, it doesn't say. Okay. What pisses me off is, you're trying to clean up the country of illegal immigration. Okay, and that's not racist. That's just trying to do your job as a country. If they come in legally, I don't care. I really don't care. But it's bad enough that we have to fight the thousands of people trying to enter this country illegally and trying to fight your own legal system and your own citizens. Like, it's truly an upside down world. And last Tuesday, Judge John Cronstadt of the United States District Court in Los Angeles, yet another Obama appointee, ruled that America must provide mental health services to families traumatized by being separate at the border. This is truly groundbreaking, said Dean of the University of California, Berkeley School of Law, Erwin Chemerinsky. And you know what? That goes for both sides. I don't like activist judges that are conservative. Okay, judges need to be neutral. Like, and you know, I don't know how you'd regulate that. It's also quite telling. Maybe we should stop letting presidents appoint judges, because all it seems is like the left will appoint a judge, the right appoints a judge, and we just go back and forth with policy, and nothing ever gets done. It was also quite telling that Cronstadt was appointed in 2011, meaning he sat mute when the Obama administration was separating families at the border. Of course they were. These people they don't care. Money and power. If none of these roads lead to that, they're not going to be on track for it. Thus, some separations are more equal and much more political than others, especially when the media makes a big deal out of them on one hand, and on the other, either completely ignore the issue, insist that the Obama administration was more virtuous because they didn't do it as often. Are you kidding me? Or simply about who is housing children in cages. All of these judicial rulings are part of the left's coordinated efforts to maintain a globalist status quo aimed at reducing the nation-state to irrelevancy. Meanwhile, keep in mind last week's cartel-driven massacre of a Mormon family, including 8-month-old twins, along with the arrest of a suspect in possession of 2 bound hostages, 4 semi-automatic rifles, ammunition, and a bulletproof SUV, that followed closely on the heels of a Mexican military defeat at the hands of a drug cartel, as well as last Wednesday, brazen daylight assassination of a cop involved in that operation. Americans must deal with drug overdoses and now kill more Americans per year than car accidents, overtaxed school systems and healthcare facilities, wholly unnecessary crimes, and the ongoing bipartisan attempts by our elites to expand the foreign-born workforce at the expense of American workers. Above all, Americans must abide by the reality that Democrats are working hard to make sure that the definition of merit-based immigration is bastardized to the point of absurdity. And in the testament to that effort, Elizabeth Warren says she's open to suspending deportations. And Bernie Sanders promises that his immigration reform plan will include the admittance of at least 50,000 immigrants displaced by climate change. And that's just the start. Sanders' campaign website states by 2050, an estimate of 200 million people will be displaced by climate change. Bernie will lead the international community in combating this crisis. And America will do its part to welcome those who are forced from their homes by climate change. Yeah, and remember when I covered this, when he came out and said that he's not going to be the only one. The UN uses immigration to flood countries so that they can disrupt the government and their economy so that they can be more reliant on them. That's what I think. So they're going to be doing this, and they're going to be running it up, and they're going to use any excuse, whether it's climate change, whether it's suffering, poor, or a dictator. No doubt Democrats will demand that every one of them will be eligible for subsidized health care, and that they'll find a judge to abet their ambitions. Fundamental transformation demands nothing less. I don't know. I want you guys to talk with amongst yourselves. I want to read what you guys think of this. Like, comment, subscribe, share, donate, converse in the comments. I'll see you guys. Representative Peter King announces retirement. He represents part of Long Island, by Devin Cole from Fake News Network. Fake News Network. Longtime GOP Representative Peter King announced on Monday he will not seek another term in office, becoming the latest in a growing list of Republicans who are not seeking re-election in 2020. King, a former chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee, is perhaps best known for his outspoken calls for strict anti-terrorism measures. He's represented a part of Long Island in Congress since 1993 and said Monday he plans to finish out his current term. King, 75, said he was retiring so he can live full-time in New York and spend more time with his family. This was not an easy decision, but there is a season for everything, and Rosemary and I decided that, especially since we are both in good health, it's time to have flexibility to spend more time with our children and grandchildren, he said, adding that his daughter's recent move to North Carolina recently accelerated my thinking. A source familiar with King's thinking told Fake News Network on Monday that King was really holding on until his daughter, Erin King Sweeney, a former councilwoman in Hempstead, New York, could run for his seat and win it. Pete is really wonderful into his kids and grandkids and hated the idea of seeing them even less if he had to split his time between D.C., New York, and North Carolina, the source said. King's retirement comes as his party inches closer to an election in which they could lose a number of vulnerable seats in the House, including his own. Yeah, that's just wishful thinking there. Earlier this year, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee said in a strategy memo that the New Yorker is at the top of the retirement watch list and included his district on a list of targeted districts. Republicans have struggled in suburban districts during President Donald Trump's time in office, a trend recently on display last week in Virginia, where Democrats seized control of the state legislature. Yeah, you want to know why they've struggled in suburban districts? you idiot. It's because of you and your negative coverage and lying and deception. So far, I don't even know if this article's true, I had a guy comment that talks about why is alternative media just parroting, mainstream media, and it's a good question, but like with my situation, I can't do on the ground journalism right now. So I have to find these articles, we have to read them, and then you, not me, have to decide for yourself on what you think. So far, 16 House Republicans and 5 Democrats have announced they won't seek re-election next year. King, who twice served as a chairman at the House Homeland Security Committee, held controversial hearings in 2011 about what he called the radicalization of Muslims in the U.S. The hearings, which he said at the time were absolutely essential, ignited protest and anger against him and accusations of bigotry. Well, of course, you're going to accuse him of bigotry if he says anything about Muslims. Can't say crap, but boy, you can target Christians. King, who is of Irish descent, has also been outspoken about Ireland and voiced support for the Irish Republican Army in the 1980s. In 2011, the congressman defended his support, telling Fake News Network, "I knew what was happening in Northern Ireland with the IRA. The IRA was a legitimate force. They've been there for 40 years, 60 years, anyway. You want to look at it." Fake News Network's Dana Bash, David White, and Chris Zila faked this report. Man. So yeah, responses from the family members of that 9 Mormon family attack in Mexico. Members of community attacked in Mexico doubt they'll return, by Walter Berry, The Associated Press. A Utah man who helped get his mother and other family members safely out of northern Mexico after 9 people were killed in an apparent ambush said Sunday that most fled to Arizona with whatever they could fit in their cars and trucks, and they'll likely never return. More than 100 people left their rural community in northern Mexico on Saturday in an 18-vehicle caravan after the attack Monday, in which 9 women and children were killed by what authorities say were a hitman from drug cartels. "I went down there to get my mother and get my family out, my brothers and sisters and lots of kids," Mike Haffen said Sunday in telephone interviews from his sister's home in Phoenix. "They've been down there for 47 years. They left with the bare minimum, whatever they could fit in the back of my pickup," Haffen added. After 47 years of living, they almost had to walk away from everything. Haffen said many of his families and friends think they'll never return to Mexico because of the drug cartels. "It's getting worse. There's nothing but corruption. You don't know who you can trust," Haffen said. "Some of my family say they don't think they'll ever be going back. It's pretty hard on everyone, and it's sad. I grew up there. It was an awesome place to live. I love the place. Growing up there, I wouldn't trade it for anything," added Haffen, 54, who moved to Utah 15 years ago. "But with the cartels doing what they're doing, it's not safe. We have found that out." Monday's deadly attack occurred as the woman traveled with their children to visit relatives. 8 children and some mere infants survived the ambush. The spread-out community traces its origin to the end of polygamy more than a century ago by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, forcing Mormon families in the U.S. with multiple wives to establish offshoots elsewhere. The family had lived in 2 hamlets in Mexico's Sonora State, La Mora and Colonia Lebaron. The residents of hamlets plan to depart in the coming days, leaving the community their families have called home since 1950s. Haffen said his family members haven't decided whether to stay in Arizona or go elsewhere. "They're still working on it, trying to figure it out," he said. Listen, I don't know. It's kind of weird. I don't think that it was just an accidental ambush or a wrong, they got the wrong guy. I think the husband was involved somehow, and he screwed up and got killed. But that's just my opinion. Like, subscribe, share, comment, and I'll see you.